Hello, my name is Ranveer Singh, and today in this video I'm going to talk about the poem in class 12's English course syllabus, the first poem, My Mother at 66, written by our own writer, Indian writer Kamala Das. She was known for her originality, versatility, and indigenous flavor. Original themes she took up rather than being inspired from others. And versatility here means she wrote on different themes. She had variety of topics to write on. And indigenous flavor. Her writing, her poems and other forms of writings. Her themes belonged to India, our own culture, our own human beings. And she is a sensitive writer who captures the complex subtleties of human relationships in lyricality. Now, sensitive, she felt. She could become sympathetic. These are some of the qualities that a poet naturally has. And being a woman, what she felt through her life, in her relationships, and what she observed in her village, all around her, she put that kind of experience in her writing, particularly poems. And sometimes we call her confessional poet, who confessed, who accepted things that happened in her life, experiences within her conjugal relationship, her married life, her ups and downs, obstacles, being a woman, how she faced inequalities in every sphere of life. So this is the poem that exemplifies the theme of relationship, human relationships, and here the relationship between a daughter and mother is discussed. So first I will read out the poem and then I will explain it a bit, and then I will discuss the involved themes and later on the question answers. Now the poem is: driving from my parents' home to Cochin last Friday morning, I saw my mother beside me, doze, open-mouthed, her face ashen like that of a corpse, and realized with pain that she was as old as she looked. But soon put that thought away and looked out at young trees, sprinting, the merry children spilling out of their homes. But after the airport's security check, standing a few yards away, I looked again at her van, pale as a late winter's moon, and felt that old familiar ache, my childhood's fear. But all I said was, "See you soon, Amma." All I did was smile and smile and smile. So the situation, the scene of the poem, the setting of the poem is writer goes to see her mother in her village. She must have visited her after a gap of a long time, and then she saw her mother being quite old, 66 years of age, and her mother has become old, exhausted, on the verge of death. So she feels disappointed, sad, and naturally, it is quite natural for a daughter to feel this kind of pain for her mother. And when she departs, for her usual place of work, wherever she was settled when she departs. Both of them, the daughter and her mother, they were sitting in the car that was going to the platform, and there she realized she was saddened at heart, and whatever she felt on that occasion has been put in this beautiful form of poem. So the poem has a single sentence. This is quite remarkable. A single sentence. The poem consists of a single sentence. And how beautifully that abstract ideas, complex ideas, all her state of her mind has been conveyed beautifully in a single long sentence. Now in the first line, let me explain the poem a bit. Driving from my parents' home to Cochin last Friday morning, I saw my mother beside me. It is simple to understand these 3-4 lines. Doze, open-mouthed, her face ashen like that of a corpse. Her mother being old, she was feeling she must be, listless in her body, quite lethargic and tired, like old people look most of the time. She was feeling like she would sleep off. Open mouth, this is how we observe old people. This is how they look. Open mouth, sometimes they fall asleep in this state. Her face ashen like that of a corpse. Now her face, mother's face has been compared with a dead body, a corpse, ashen like that of a corpse. So simile, a figure of speech, a poetic device. Simile has been used. Simile, where like or as, when we compare things through these two words, like and as. So her mother, let me repeat this line. I saw my mother beside me, dozed, open-mouthed, her face ashen like that of a corpse. So she saw her mother in this state and realized with pain. Quite obvious for a daughter to realize with pain, the state in which her mother was. She was approaching her death, quite old she had become, and realized with pain that she was as old as she looked. Now this is quite natural for people to look as old, as old as they are, to look their age. But this simple thing is quite unacceptable for a daughter, because it's a matter of her mother. A daughter, an Indian daughter, never likes to see her mother approaching her death. So quite unacceptable, this simple thing that she was as old as she looked. Now, obviously a daughter likes to see her mother live long, but that was not the case with the writer. So, let me repeat the line once again. I saw my mother beside me, dozed, open mouthed, her face ashen like that of a corpse, and realized with pain that she was as old as she looked, but soon put that thought away. Now the writer, being sad, being full of grief, being disturbed and discomforted by this idea, puts that thought away. It's quite observant, quite remarkable really, that she could put that thought away. Normally people can't put these uncomfortable thoughts away, but she was able to put that thought away and looked out at young trees sprinting, the merry children spilling out of their homes. Now, being disturbed, she puts that uncomfortable thought of her mother's approaching death away from her mind and looks outside of the car. And what she sees is life all around. Children spilling out, merry children spilling out of their trees, sprinting. Trees sprinting. The car is moving in the forward direction, and trees, they look as if they are running backward. So this is effect of science. So that has been used here. The merry children spilling out of the merry children, happy children. They look as if seeds spill out from sacks. When something is full, seeds, when they spill out, when they are scattered here and there. So here the writer creates an image. A writer presents an image. Image is what? A picture. Picture in words. When we read something and a picture emerges in our mind, that is image. So this is image. Image, trees sprinting and merry children spilling out of their homes. So this is what she saw when she looks, after putting that thought away, when she looks out of the car, she finds this scene. This is what she observes. But after the airport's secure, and then she reaches the airport, and after the airport's security check, standing a few yards away, I looked again at her van, pale as a late winter's moon. Now, after the security check, when she looks at her mother once again, what she observes is once again the same image. Her mother being old and ill, wan, listless, lacking energy, looking, lethargic, tired, exhausted, and pale as an ill person. And now she compares her mother's face to a late winter's moon. In late winter, in February, in the month of February, the moon looks quite faded and yellowish in color. So, these poets are wonderful people. They can compare things. They have vivid imagination, great creative imagination. So they can make these kind of comparisons. So that's what the idea that came to her mind. She makes this comparison. So she compares her mother's face with late winter's moon. The way the moon looks, hazy, pale. And felt, now, then the writer feels how she feels, and felt that old familiar ache, my childhood's fear. So, after seeing her mother in that state of tiredness, that state of exhaustion, that state of old and ill, that state of old age and illness, she remembers, involuntarily, the idea comes to her mind. She remembers an old familiar ache, the pain we feel in our body. So here ache means physical pain and mental pain. She remembers what she used to feel about her mother in her childhood and all, throughout her life. The fear was that her mother would one day become so old and that she would eventually die one day. The universal truth, the bitter truth. Now, it's uncomfortable. This idea is unacceptable for a daughter. But now she feels the same pain once again, the same mental and physical pain once again. Familiar ache. She was quite familiar with this pain. So that comes to her mind. So, old familiar ache, my childhood's fear. But despite, feeling like that, feeling oppressed by that painful feeling of childhood, she could not express, she was grieving, she was full of grief, sad, but she cannot express her sadness in front of her mother. How can she? How can she spread sadness? So, being a dutiful daughter, a courteous daughter, a daughter, having worldly wisdom, having well versed in the manners of the world, how she expresses, what she cleverly hides her emotions, and outwardly she said, "See you soon, Amma." But all I said was, "See you soon, Amma." All I did was smile and smile and smile. So this is how she looked on surface. She bids farewell to her mother using these courteous words, following this custom, bidding farewell in beautiful words. And this shows her being optimistic as well, though she was hoping against hope, but she could not express those feelings of grief and sadness in front of her mother. So she just says, "See you soon, Amma." The usual words we use when we bid farewell. And she had smile on her face. So this is how she departs. So this was the poem. Now let us, discuss the question answers, and through these question answers, the theme of the poem as well. What is the kind of pain? First question is, what is the kind of pain and ache that the poet feels? The pain and ache. This relates to the realization of bitter truth, that people die one day, that her mother would die one day. She would not be able to control this universal truth, this bitter truth. So this is the pain and ache that a daughter has for her mother. This is quite obvious for a daughter to have this kind of feeling for her mother. So this is the pain and ache. Pain and ache at the realization that her mother has become old, weak and infirm, and she would die soon. She was approaching her inevitable death. Now the second question is, why are the young trees described as sprinting? Trees have been, described as running like children. So they are described like this to present the image of childhood, the image of liveliness, to present a contrast between life and death. So these trees are described like children, and a contrast has been presented between death and life. These trees, like children, they represent life. On the other hand, her mother is the veritable image of death. So contrast has been presented, and this is quite an ordinary, quite a usual device that poets use in their poems. Quite an important one. Quite widespread, the use of this device. Third question is, why has the poem brought in the image of married children spilling out of their homes? Similarly, married children, happy children, they look like they are scattering all around, spilling out of their homes, they are full of life and jest. They are, lively, active active children going out to play with their friends. So life full of activity, jest and enthusiasm. So here again, the part of same contrast that has been presented in the earlier image of trees described as sprinting. So through this image, this word picture, writer presents, skillfully this contrast between childhood and death. Fourth question is, why has the mother been compared to the late winter's moon? So it's just the way moon looks in late winter, hazy, yellowish, pale, faded in color. Similar was her mother's face. So through the use of simile as a poetic device, the writer presents this comparison. Fifth question is, what do the parting words of the poet and her smile signify? The parting words, see you soon, Amma, and smile on her face. What do they signify? They signify that being courteous, being a dutiful daughter, being a lady, well versed in manners, good manners, and a daughter who was sensitive towards her mother, she could not express her grief and sadness in front of her mother. She had to hide. So this is a sort of sacrifice committed by the daughter, that she cannot spread unhappiness. She has to give some kind of hope to her mother. She cannot sadden her mother. She herself was saddened, she herself was discomforted, disturbed at heart, but how could she spread this to her mother? She wants to see her mother happy. So this is quite ironical for her, to be happy on the surface and be painful at heart. And this is what happens. So it's a comment also by the writer on the usual state of affairs, how we do behave in social circles, how we do cleverly hide our emotions. So this is how we can answer this question. Last question is, so we have already discussed this question. Now the theme, let us talk about the theme of the poem. Aging as a natural process. Though it's quite bitter to accept aging, but this is how we human beings are. We age, we become ill, and we die eventually. So just to convey this universal truth, this aging as a natural process, the writer has used this effective medium of a poem. Through this poem, she expresses effectively the contrast between old age and childhood. And through this poem, she conveys that it is quite natural for people to die when the age proper arrives. When the age proper arrives, people do die, but human relationships, they are subtle, they are complex, and people do feel pain, and they sometimes, they are saddened, and particularly a daughter, it's quite disturbing. It can be disturbing. It can be very, very much disturbing for a daughter to feel, to accept the approaching death and illness of her mother. And this is what the writer must have gone through in her life, and she effectively presents this pain and ache of her own through her poem. So this is what the theme is: aging as a natural process. And people die, people are born, they go through this process of childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and then at last old age. People die, we are saddened, we feel the sense of loss, but on the other hand, there is a possibility, there is a scope. We have to be optimistic, so we, on the one hand, we have to bear the loss. On the other hand, we very soon overcome that pain, when we look at life all around us in the form of children, those images of jest and enthusiasm, those images of action all around, and life all around in the form of trees or children moving all around, playing happily all around. So this is how the theme can be explained. And the poetic devices that have been used in this poem, like where, as I have told earlier, like and as, where these two words are used, there is simile. So if the question of this kind is asked, you can say that simile has been used. And in this line, first example of use of simile is when the writer says, her face ashen like that of a corpse. She compares her mother's face with ash. Ashen face, and she compares her mother's face with a corpse, and then ashen, her face was ashen. So face, ashen, here metaphor also, use of metaphor. So simile as well as metaphor. Metaphor implied comparison. Face has been compared with ash without use of words like and as, without use of these words. And then once again we have an example of simile, use of simile, when she compares her mother's face with late winter's moon, saying, I looked again at her wan pale as a late winter's moon. So this is how, and then there is repetition also for lyrical effect. Smile and smile at last, all I did was smile and smile and smile. So this is what the poem was all about. I hope you enjoyed this discussion, and don't forget, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe so that you could be intimated regarding the coming up videos. And thanks for watching. Thank you very much.